to do is win.
From the Padres Radio Network, here's Sam Levitt.
San Diego Padres baseball coming up on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Today, the Padres take on the Arizona Diamondbacks in the second game of a four-game series. Our starting pitching matchup today for the D-backs, right-hander Merrill Kelly, and for the Padres, right-hander Nick Pivetta. Hi again, everyone. Sam Levitt with you from inside the Western Metal Building here at Petco Park. First pitch coming up at 6:40 as the Padres continue this 10-game homestand. Coming up in the next 50 minutes, we have a lot to do. We'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. We hear from Padres shortstop Xander Bogaerts. From reliever Jason Adam. In just a few minutes, we check in with Jesse Agler. Our keys to the game, a full breakdown of today's starting pitching matchup, and much, much more. But first, it's time to set the table, brought to you by Fraser Farms Market. Set your table with the highest quality of natural and organic products from Fraser Farms Market, a San Diego original since 1971, with 3 locations, La Mesa, Vista, and Oceanside, and at FraserFarmsMarket.com. Padres entered today 48-42. They enter the day sitting one game out of the final wild card spot in the National League. Diamondbacks are 45-46. They're 4.5 games out of the final wild card spot. D-backs have won 3 of 4 from the Padres so far this season. Well, the Padres and D-backs began this 4-game series here at Petco Park last night. We had a little history. We had a good ball game. Let's rewind.
Did you miss what happened in the last Padres game? Let's take a look back with our Padres Rewind on the Padres Radio Network.
We take a look back at yesterday's series opener. Yu Darvish took the mound for the Padres for his first start of 2025. The Padres jumped ahead in the bottom half of the first.
3-2, they do not go, and Arise hits it on the ground right to Naylor. He goes down to second. That's one. Perdomo's turn with Gallen covering. Bounces off Arise, trickles into right field. Tatis will come in to score, and Luis appears to be injured. Padres take a 1-0 lead.
Luis was okay, and he stayed in the game. The lead was short-lived, though. Yu Darvish issued a leadoff walk and an RBI double in the top of the second. In the top of the third, Corbin Carroll hit a leadoff double. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. drove him in with an RBI single. Arizona led 2-1. It stayed 2-1 as we went to the bottom half of the fourth inning. Manny coming to the plate at 1,999 career hits, and it was a memorable moment for Manny.
Machado on the verge of history, the 0-1. Hard hit grounder left side off the glove of the diving Perdomo into left, and number 2,000 for Manny Machado in his major league career.
What a moment for Manny and the fans here at Petco Park. Padres would load the bases in that inning, but they did not score. Yuki Matsui was on the mound for the top of the fifth inning. A runner on base for Josh Naylor.
Here's the 0-2 in the air to deep right center field. Merrill, long run into the gap, and this one gonna go. Josh Naylor over that Adam Jones wall in right center field. A long 2-run homer. 4-1 Diamondbacks here in the top of the fifth inning. And a big night already for Josh Naylor, the former Padre.
It stayed 4-1 for a while. Zach Allen was really good. He allowed just 1 run in 6 innings of work. In the top of the 8th inning, it was Corbin Carroll.
Runner on second, 2 outs. Peralta trying to keep this game 4-2. Pitch to Carroll, ripped on a line into right center field. That's in the gap. Going to bounce and roll all the way to the wall. McCann has scored. Carroll's trying for 3. Cronenworth has the relay slip out of his hand. And an RBI triple for Corbin Carroll. His 10th triple of the season, and the Diamondback lead is back to 3. It's 5-2.
D-backs got another run to make it 6-2, but the Padres would not go quietly. Manny Machado led off in the bottom of the 8th.
Manny 2 for 3. Collected his 2,000th hit back in the 4th inning, and now he launches one to deep left field. Grichuk is back at the wall. It's going to go. What a night for Manny Machado. Collected his 2,000th career hit in the 4th. And now his 15th home run of the season, leading off in the bottom of the 8th.
The D-backs bullpen then proceeded to walk the bases loaded, but the Padres did not score. Final score in the series opener yesterday, Padres had some late opportunities, but Arizona wins it by a final of 6-3. As we get ready for first pitch coming up at 6:40, let's go inside the Jerry Coleman Broadcast Center.
Let's take a trip up to the Padres broadcast booth for a deep dive on today's matchup with Jesse Agler in our Padres game preview on the Padres Radio Network.
Well, Jesse, the first thing you notice when you look at the Padres lineup today for Game 2 against the D-backs, Jackson Merrill moved down to the number 5 spot in the order, and I'll tell you, I'm not personally very worried about Jackson Merrill. Doesn't sound like Mike Shildt is very worried about Merrill, and I don't think Jackson seems all that worried about himself. So let me ask you, Jesse Agler, are you worried about Jackson Merrill and this most recent stretch?
If I told you I was, how foolish would I be based on everything you just said? I mean, if Mike Shildt isn't worried, if Jackson Merrill isn't worried, why on earth should Jesse be worried? So to answer your question, no, I'm not worried. I feel for him. You talk to anybody who's played this game for any period of time about a struggle like this, and they just shake their heads. I mean, you were there when Xander was talking about it in the clubhouse before batting practice today. It's like these guys can feel it when they're talking about it because they've all been there. They know how just absolutely helpless it can feel at times. And it's the most humbling sport by a long shot. And when you're going through something like that, particularly really for the first time in your career, as is the case with Jackson, it's got to drive you a little bit crazy. But look, the makeup, as we like to say in baseball, of Jackson Merrill is off the charts. His mental aptitude for this game, his psychological toughness, his ability to want to compete and to do everything he needs to get himself right is literally as good as it could possibly be. So it's only a matter of time for Jackson. I'm sure there are mechanical adjustments. I'm sure there are mindset adjustments, all that kind of thing. Hopefully he's able to figure it out here sooner rather than later. But not fun for him. But in terms of worrying, no, absolutely not long term.
Yeah, I'm not worried either. And, Jackson's going to come out of it at some point, and hopefully that's sooner rather than later. And you mentioned Xander Bogaerts talking in the clubhouse earlier. Today we'll play some of that audio from Xander in the clubhouse a little bit earlier. Coming up later on our pregame coverage, let's talk about the starting pitching matchup today. Merrill Kelly on the mound for the Diamondbacks, Nick Pivetta on the mound for the Padres. Jesse, let's focus on Kelly. He's a really good starting pitcher. Nice outing last time out against the Giants. The interesting thing, though, is that the Padres have seen a ton of them, and as of late, they've really done some good things against Merrill Kelly. This will be an interesting matchup tonight.
It will. It's a rematch pitching-wise of the Father's Day game in Phoenix last month, and that's the only game of that series the Padres won. And, they did good work against Merrill Kelly, and I'm sure you are referring to the last 5 starts against the Padres stat, 1-3 with an ERA, almost 6.5. But he's a guy that is on any given night really capable of turning in a great start. He's a quality guy. I have really thoroughly enjoyed his career here and getting to see him do his thing for his hometown team. Zach Gallen had some ups and downs. He pitched very well yesterday. Merrill Kelly, like I said, despite the recent struggles against the Padres, is very capable of turning in a good one. So nothing to take for granted, nothing automatic here tonight. As you said, they've seen him a lot. A lot of the Padre hitters in the lineup tonight have a ton of at-bats against Merrill Kelly in his career. And the guy is getting on. He's 36 years old now. He's had a little bit of an uncommon path, obviously, with the long stop at the KBO, but he's a competitor, and he knows what he's doing out there. And if he's able to command his pitches the way he wants, it'll be a challenge. But, there's no doubt Padres have handled him really well the last few times.
And meanwhile, Nick Pivetta, very, very good his last couple of outings. We'll talk more about Nick coming up later. Jesse, as always, appreciate the time. Terrific call on Manny Machado's 2000th career hit last night. And we'll talk to you and Tony coming up at 6:30. Thanks so much.
Sam, I appreciate that. Thanks, man.
All right, that's Jesse Agler joining us on our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show here on the Padres Radio Network as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 6:40. Padres trying to Bounce back after losing the series opener yesterday. Padres lineup today, we talked about Jackson Merrill being moved down to the number 5 spot. It looks like this. Fernando Tatis Jr. in right field leading off. Luis Ariz at first base batting second. Manny Machado at third base batting third. Gavin Sheets, the left fielder, batting cleanup. Jackson Merrill in center batting fifth. Xander Bogaerts at shortstop batting sixth. Jake Cronenworth at second base batting seventh. Trenton Brooks, the DH, batting eighth. And Elias Diaz is doing the catching and batting ninth. And before we head to break, I do want to pass along some news to you that came down just a few minutes before we went on the air tonight. Robert Suarez has been added to the National League All-Star roster for the All-Star game coming up in Atlanta next week. So that now brings it to 4 Padres heading to Atlanta: Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr., Jason Adam, and Robert Suarez. So a big congratulations to Robert Suarez. He will head to the All-Star game. He was added to the National League roster just within the last hour or so. When we come back, we'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. Plus, a little bit later, we hear from Xander Bogaerts. We hear from Jason Adam. Much more to do on our pregame coverage. Game 2 of this 4-game set between the Padres and the D-backs coming up at 6:40 right here on the Padres Radio Network.
Stay tuned. Food, where fresh meets flavor. Find farm fresh produce, bold Asian spices, and gourmet ingredients at 4665 El Cajon Boulevard. Sin Lee Food, the cook's Asian resource.
Before we talk about today, just flashing back on what Manny accomplished yesterday and just kind of looking at Xander as the next guy. I mean, there's a good chance by the end of next season we're having these same conversations. What have you seen in Xander, and what do you think Xander might be able to take away from watching Manny do and handling that type of situation?
Yeah, you know what? It's puts in perspective the career that Xander's having as well, right? I mean, Manny, of course, congratulations and well-deserved. You spoke about it last night. It's a combination of things that lead to that. But he's been able to post every day, and Bogey's also a guy that shows up and plays, and he's on a trajectory for something really special, and that's 2,000 hits. It's a pretty small group.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you think only 1% of the players that have ever played get to that point, and you might have two on the same team. It's pretty unique.
And that's 1% of the players that have ever played in the big leagues.
Yeah.
Forget about the number of people that started putting on a bat, putting a glove on their hand and throwing a ball, at 6 years old.
EcoWater going for you today. He's kind of been the stopper, the guy that can pull up a win after the team's coming off a loss. How important is it to have a guy like that?
Huge. Listen, as many they're called aces. And anybody plays cards, you want as many aces as you can get, right? Because it's Trump. And so, it's what guys do that. And, you want to have as many staff aces as you have, and Nick's been one of those guys for us.
You've seen Nick at all different points in his career. What do you think he's doing differently this year or better this year that's getting these type of results?
I think, and I said this before we acquired Nick, looking at Nick's career, not competed against him a ton over the years, but have, and more familiar with the name than the body of work. And then you start to explore the body of work. When we get close to acquiring him, you start to look and you realize in the history that you have with guys, this guy looks like he might be in a real sweet spot of where he's got the experience of actually physically pitching, and then the ability to kind of look back and see where and what he needs to do. And then when we had the interview with him, which was scheduled for, I don't recall exactly, maybe a half hour, 45 minutes, that went an hour and 15 or so. And it was like a blink of an eye with him and Ruben, myself, and AJ. And it was just so easy and natural. And you started the conversations and you realize, this guy is getting to that really good place where he's self-actualizing, and he's, got the talent to go, execute all the different things that come into winning baseball games, which are a lot.
You talked about the things that you could do to help Jackson. Is moving him down the lineup one of those things that you were alluding to last night?
It's one of the bigger ones. Just take a little bit off, just get down a little bit. Don't feel like you got to carry so much at the top. Go down there and be around some other good hitters, and which clearly was the top. But yeah, just not feeling he's got it too much. But quite frankly, it's something that I'm doing. But I really don't have a lot of concern about Jackson Merrill. I love on him, make sure he's doing okay. But Jackson's a really strong-minded kid, and he knows he's a good player. And when you're a good player, I think we all have something in our lives that don't always go right. But if you have a good center core of knowing who you are and knowing how you are when you're good, and you have the ability to work towards getting back to that, you're going to ultimately be just fine.
Following up on the Jackson topic, Xander was talking about going through a similar thing early in his career and how it got to a point where he felt like he was just listening to too many people, all well-meaning people. And he was able to narrow it down. He said Victor was the guy that actually he honed in on. So how valuable can that advice be for Jackson, and how fortunate to have a guy like Victor that can turn to if needed?
Very valuable on multiple fronts. One, the value is going and experiencing that and finding out for yourself, right? And then having somebody like Bogey that you can put your arm around. It's like, I've been there, done that. There's not many people that, can walk in your shoes, so to speak. And then it's the ability to self-actualize and know that you have those people in your life that you can do that and remind you of what it takes to be that. But there are, and I can't minimize how difficult it was for Bogey when he experienced that, but there's a little more social media, and there's more people that have ideas and more things that can leak into these guys' worlds. And so the noise gets louder. And so when the noise gets louder and things get more complicated, the quieter and simpler you need to make it. And one or two voices are ultimately what it's like. And then ultimately it's about Jackson's voice.
I know how Darvish recovered from yesterday, and could you guys look to use an extra off day for him next turn through, just knowing that he's coming back from the injury? What have you?
It's on the table. I'm not saying it's something we're going to do. It's going to be something that we're going to explore based on how he does, but it is impactful of other things, clearly. So, we'll talk to him today, see how he recovers, and we'll go from there.
That was Padres manager Mike Shildt earlier today inside the Padres dugout. We'll hear more from Mike on our post-game coverage coming up a little bit later on this evening. And you heard the final question there about you, Darvish. The good news is that after you made his season debut yesterday, he was out on the field today playing catch. So I would assume that's a pretty good sign. We'll see how you, Darvish, continues to feel following his season debut. And once again, right-hander Nick Pivetta on the mound for the Padres here tonight against right-hander Merrill Kelly on the mound for Arizona. We'll tell you who's hot, who's not in a moment. First, let's pause for station ID on the Padres radio network.
KWFN and KWFN HD1 San Diego.
This is Mike Shildt, manager of the San Diego Padres. The Padres play here on 97.3 The Fan.
An Odyssey Sports Station.
Sam Levitt with you inside the loft here at the Western Metal Building at Petco Park as we get ready for today's game. First pitch coming up at 6:40 between the Padres and the D-backs. Let's tell you who's hot, who's not.
Which player is locked in at the dish? Who needs to kick things up another notch? This is Who's Hot, Who's Not on the Padres Radio Network.
Let's begin with the hot category. Luis Arraez in there today. Luis has 9 hits in his last 4 games. He's hitting .344 in his last 22 games. Luis now has his batting average up to .292 on the season. The not category, well, we take a look at the 22-year-old Jackson Merrill, just 3 for 33 in his last 8 games. He's batting just .116 in his last 11 games. It's been a rough stretch for Jackson. You heard from Mike Shildt just moments ago. Mike's not worried about him. Quite frankly, I'm not worried about him. And we'll get a good perspective on Jackson's struggles from a veteran, Xander Bogaerts, who has gone through struggles like that in the early part of his career as well. We'll get his perspective on Jackson Merrill's struggles coming up a little bit later as well. And that's a quick look at who's hot, who's not as we get ready for today's game. When we come back, we'll take a look at some headlines from around the major leagues. Plus, we hear from Xander Bogaerts, we hear from Jason Adam, our keys to the game, and a full breakdown of today's starting pitching matchup. Much, much more to do on our pregame coverage from Petco Park right here on the Padres Radio Network.
Hey, gang, it's Woodsy. Ever wanted to drink
Welcome back to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show. EcoWater SoCal, your water should be perfect. Sam Levitt with you inside the loft here at the Western Metal Building at Petco Park. First pitch coming up at 6:40 between the Padres and the Arizona Diamondbacks. Right-hander Nick Pivetta on the mound for San Diego. Right-hander Merrill Kelly on the mound for Arizona. We'll have much more on that starting pitching matchup coming up in a little bit. We'll also hear from Xander Bogaerts and Jason Adam over the course of the next 20 minutes or so. First, let's take you around the horn.
Let's examine the most important news and the latest information you need to know in the world of Major League Baseball. Sam Levitt takes you around the horn. Presented by Valley View Casino and Hotel. Get ready for Major League winning when you join Valley View Casino and Hotel's Players Club and receive over $200 in free instant offers. Visit valleyviewcasino.com to learn more today.
Well, we have another participant in the home run derby next week in Atlanta. Pirates center fielder O'Neal Cruz accepted an invitation earlier today to compete in that home run derby. He's the fifth player to commit to the competition. The others are Ronald Acuna Jr., Cal Raleigh, James Wood, and Byron Buxton. So the field continues to fill up. Should be a fun home run derby in Atlanta on Monday before the All-Star game on Tuesday. The Yankees have announced that Jazz Chisholm Jr. will revert to his role as the Yankees' everyday second baseman after he returned from the IL about a month ago to play third base. DJ LeMahieu looks like he's no longer going to play it puts DJ LeMahieu's future in a little bit of uncertainty as far as where he might play. The point is, Jazz Chisholm, he's going to go from third base to second base. That's some news for the Yankees. Brewers have announced that first baseman Rhys Hoskins expects to miss about 6 weeks as he recovers from a sprained left thumb. So that's a big injury for the Brew Crew, and they're playing well right now, but they'll be without Rhys Hoskins for some time. And that's a quick look at some headlines from around the major leagues. Dodgers have also lost a bunch of games, 4 in a row for the Dodgers after getting swept in Houston and losing yesterday. So that's a headline there, and that's a look at some headlines from around the major leagues. We'll have a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard coming up a little bit later as well. Well, yesterday, the Diamondbacks were missing a key player from their lineup. That guy back in there tonight. Let's tell you who's in, who's out.
Who's in? Who's out? This is the Bada Fulkerson Injury Report, presented by San Diego's Bulldog Injury Attorneys, who hope you're never in an accident. But if you are, make Bada Fulkerson the first call you make. Hit him up 24/7 at badafulkerson.com.
All-star starter Ketel Marte was scratched from yesterday's lineup with right groin tightness. And the good news for Arizona, he's back in there today playing second base and batting second. More concerningly, the D-backs plays closer Shelby Miller on the IL with a right forearm strain yesterday. Arizona currently has 11 pitchers on the IL, including their ace Corbin Burns. 6 of those pitchers have undergone UCL surgery. Miller had a 1.98 ERA before the injury. Kevin Ginkel closed out yesterday's game for Arizona. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but Ketel Marte back in the lineup. Shelby Miller, as of yesterday, out of the bullpen with a concerning injury, a right forearm strain. And that's a quick look at our injury report. Nothing major to report on the Padres side of things, so mostly focused on Arizona without Miller and Marte back in the lineup. Well, the Padres bullpen, the back end, continues to be very, very good. They now have, like we said, 2 of those fearsome foursome in the back end of the bullpen. Jason Adam, Adrian Morejon, Jeremiah Estrada, and Robert Suarez. 2 out of the 4 are now all-stars, as Robert Suarez, just before we came on the air, was named to the National League All-Star team. So now out of those 4 guys, 2 of them are all-stars, Suarez and Adam. Again, a big congratulations to Robert Suarez and Jason Adam. Those 4 have been so good. Adrian Morejon, in particular, as of late, has just been sensational out of the Padres pen. Here was Jason Adam on the fearsome foursome in the back end of the Padres pen.
Yeah, I think it's we kind of hit on it earlier, like we have each other's back. And
the reality is you're not going to have your best stuff every night, but we're out there, we're rooting hard for each other, and we're dying for the opportunity to bail each other out when one of us doesn't have it. So, and that I've benefited from that greatly, and I hope I can come in and bail one of them out one night if they don't ever have it. But it's such a fun group, and a group that has each other's back on and off the field. We do anything for each other.
As far as Adrian, I know you haven't seen his whole Padres career here, but you have seen now quite a bit of it. Your thoughts on what he continues to do and the way he's evolved?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, over the past couple of months, I think he's been the best reliever in baseball. And I think just to see that he's been in the big leagues a while, but he's still pretty young. So he's got I'm excited to watch him for the next 15 years dominate hitters. It's so, when he goes in the game, it's so fun to watch. He's dominant. He fills it up, trusts his stuff in the zone, and the results speak for themselves. He's been incredible.
That was Jason Adam inside the Padres clubhouse earlier. That forced him out of the bullpen. Adam, Estrada, Morajón, and Suarez, they were tremendous in the win on Sunday against the Royals. Well, not against the Royals, the Rangers, rather. Got my R's confused. The Rangers on Sunday in that win, those four all putting up scoreless innings, and they have all collectively been very, very good out of the bullpen. And like we said, now two of them all-stars in Robert Suarez and Jason Adam. First pitch coming up at 6:40 here at Petco Park. Let's give you our keys to today's game.
How will the Padres unlock a win today? These are the keys to the game. Presented by El Centro Motors Ford. Meet your new Ford General Manager, Greg Ryan, now at El Centro Motors Ford, your new Ford truck, Bronco, and SUV HQ. Call Greg directly at 619-944-0774.
Key number one, can the Padres capitalize on the Arizona pen? The Diamondbacks bullpen ERA ranks third worst in the majors. Only the White Sox have more blown lead losses than Arizona this season. Kevin Ginkel got his second save of the season last night. Again, Shelby Miller on the IL now. He threw a scoreless ninth inning to bring his season ERA down to an even 9. Ginkel's given up 20 earned runs in 20 innings. The point being, this is not a good Arizona bullpen. Now, the Padres got a couple of runs against their bullpen yesterday, but it wasn't enough. They were trailing by 3 late in the game, could not find the big hit they needed. Padres have to be more productive against this kind of leaky Arizona bullpen throughout the rest of this series, including tonight. That's key number one. Key number two, how about Fernando Tatis Jr. against Merrill Kelly? Fernando is 10 for 28. That's a .357 average with 4 home runs in his career against Kelly. However, Tatis, as we know, it's been a quiet couple of months. He only has 2 home runs, a .229 batting average, and a .328 slugging percentage in his last 36 games. So, can Fernando do some damage, get it going against the guy that he has traditionally really liked facing in Merrill Kelly? That's key number 2. And key number 3, slow down Corbin Carroll. Carroll had a really productive day yesterday, had a double, had a triple. He is the first Diamondback with 10 triples within the team's first 100 games of a season. He's also, right now, the second player in Major League history with 3 consecutive seasons of 10 or more doubles, 10 or more triples, 20 or more home runs, 40 or more RBIs, 10 or more stolen bases. He's a really special player at the top of the Arizona lineup. 20 home runs so far this season. You got to contain him at the top of that lineup. That's key number 3, and that's a look at our keys to today's game. Let's take a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard, tell you what's going on around the majors.
Let's take a trip around the bigs to highlight the scores that matter most with our out-of-town scoreboard. Presented by Jensen Premium Beef Patties. Always a hit for grilling.
Take a look at the out-of-town scoreboard. Tigers beat the Rays earlier today in Detroit 4-2. Games going on right now. The Yankees lead the Mariners 1-0. Orioles lead the Mets 5-2 in the 7th inning. Red Sox beating up on the Rockies 10-0. Marlins beating up on the Reds 10-1. Twins lead the Cubs 2-0 in Minnesota in the 7th inning. Brewers ahead of the Dodgers 2-1 in Milwaukee in the 6th inning. Royals lead the Pirates 3-2. They're in the 7th. Blue Jays 5, White Sox 0 in the 6th inning in Chicago. Guardians lead the Astros 6-1 in Houston in the 4th inning. We have rain before the Nationals and the Cardinals in St. Louis. They're delayed there. And a few games yet to begin. Rangers and the Angels at 6:38 in Anaheim. Phillies and the Giants at 6:45 in San Francisco. Braves and the A's in Sacramento at 7:05. And that's a quick look at the out-of-town scoreboard. When we come back, we hear from the X-Man, Xander Bogaerts. Plus, we tell you what to watch for in today's game. And we break down today's starting pitching matchup between Nick Pivetta and Merrill Kelly. First pitch coming up at 6:40 on the Padres Radio Network.
You're listening to the
It's hard. I went through something similar, but probably a little worse than him. And I think where it can really get tough on a player is when you start hearing from too many people. I'm not saying this is what he's doing. I'm just saying this is what I did. And I don't want him to fall into that trap. Everyone wants you to perform. Everyone wants you to do well. And the worst thing is just when you're hearing from so many other different people. Everyone wants you to do good, so they're gonna obviously give you some stuff. But once you start hearing a little too much, that's when you get in the box and you start thinking about where your hands have to be, where your feet have to be, instead of just like seeing that white ball. That white ball really gets small once you start thinking a little too much. And I feel like you have to go through it to understand, how to get out of it. I think that's just part of the way this game is, and part of maturing as a player. Anyone could be like, you're gonna get out of it. When you're in that grind all alone, in that batter's box, it's a little different, So once you get out of it, then you'll be able to look back and be like, okay, this is what I did, to get out of it and stuff like that. But I just think the worst thing that could possibly happen is just listening to too many. And I'm not saying that he's doing that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying for a lot of young hitters, that can be one of the toughest things to do.
That was Xander Bogaerts inside the Padres clubhouse. Great insight there from Xander. Right-hander Merrill Kelly on the mound for Arizona today. He's 7-4, a 3.55 ERA in 18 starts. His last start against the Giants, 6 innings, 3 earned runs given up on 5 hits. Kelly, though, has struggled recently against the Padres. In his last 5 starts against San Diego, he's 1-3 with a 6.43 ERA. Has given up 7 home runs in those games. Meanwhile, right-hander Nick Pivetta on the mound for the Padres today. He's 9-2, a 3.25 ERA in 17 starts this season. His last start in Philadelphia, 6 innings, 1 earned run given up. Start prior against the Nationals, 7 scoreless innings with just 3 hits given up. Pivetta allowed 2 runs in 7 innings with 9 strikeouts and a walk in his first outing against Arizona this season. And that's a look at our starting pitching matchup tonight between Nick Pivetta and Merrill Kelly. As always, thank you for listening to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show. EcoWater SoCal, keeping it soft since 1925. Your water should be perfect. When we come back, Jesse Ackler, Tony Gwynn Jr. have the full starting lineups, first pitch, and all the play-by-play. I'll talk to you on our postgame coverage. You're listening to your home for San Diego Padres baseball, 97.3 The Fan, and the Padres Radio Network. Enjoy the game, everybody.